Everybody, this is Kyle Sabraw. He's the CEO of Greenhab Local SEO, as well as the SEO Warehouse. He and I have worked together on strategies and kind of talked sometimes about local SEO. And we're just having a conversation about how things have changed and what's going on in the local SEO industry these days. How are you today, Kyle?
I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. Thank you so much for joining me and helping me out. Like, I really value you as an expert who does lots of experimentation, is a profound expert in local SEO, because what I'm hoping for this video to do is to kind of give people some insight into, like, what you've been seeing change in the environment in local SEO in like the last year, what's working, what's not, and so maybe some ideas or resources that people can use.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do it. I'm
Awesome.
excited.
Great, great. So, starting off, I've been like, what have you been seeing on your side of fence in terms of like challenges with like ranking on maps in the last, what's been hard, what's been changing?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what's really interesting is there was this just profound shift in what Google is looking at and what Google is really favoring since I would say about mid 2023. And the old tactics back then, before that, all you had to do was get Yext, get your website up, put a couple pages up, and then you'd be ranking. And then it was okay, now need to make a page for every single city and neighborhood and point of interest. And then that stopped working, right? And Google really made this huge shift over, okay, yeah, you're creating all this content, cool, but how much of this is one is new content because everybody's using the same chat GPT bullshit out there, right?
Right.
And two, how do I know you're an actual brand that people are actually liking? What kind of information do I have about you? Not just the information you put out there, but your brand, your services, how your services are helping other people. And on top of that, one of the strategies that we really leaned into is okay, am I seeing you mentioned on other third party website? Right. So now we're hitting Reddit really hard, which we have been for about 3 or 4. I've been spamming Reddit for a while, but now all the white hats have caught on to Reddit, and that's become it's become super huge. And then what we've also been doing too for a few years is making sure we're getting RDF triples on some of these, not just high authority websites like press releases and shit like that, but also like Instagram, YouTube. And then we're even doing things like mass page websites, mentioning these RDF triples and getting those crawled by Google, which also helps with LLMs of the stuff. And that's been huge for us.
Yeah. Can you explain what those triples are?
Yeah. So what we're doing, and I actually showed it earlier this year to a mechanic that I go to for my Jeep, because you can't just get to go to anybody for a Jeep, right? Like there are specialized mechanics that I like to go to. He wasn't ranking anywhere, and just he was a nice guy. So what I did was I had a few thousand mentions of an RDF triple, which is XYZ mechanic. It was XYZ auto is a Jeep mechanic, right? So I did a few thousand mentions of that. I ran those. Those are all from third party websites. I ran those through Omega Indexer, and literally 2 weeks later, he was popping up in the map pack, right, in the radius around his shop. And then it was also getting mentioned in Perplexity that this guy works on Jeeps. So really all it is you mention your subject, your verb, and your object, right? So XYZ does ABC. For XYZ is a ABC.
Right.
And you do that enough and you put it in, right? LLM's going to pick up on that. And that's exactly how we write our press releases too, right? Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of the stuff that I've seen, like, of course, like a lot of the trend that you're talking about, like going back to the middle of 2023, which was the August 1st update, 2023 was a huge changeover when knowledge graph became a huge signal for my software. I saw click-through rate change dramatically in terms of how well it worked for businesses that were very weak in knowledge graph. And like, so the
Yes.
triples, of course, that's
Mhm.
like creating entity relationships. Google's interpreting the triple and they're interpreting it as this entity related to this entity or this service in this place. So it creates a relationship
Mhm.
between entities. So those triples are influencing that through knowledge graph, which is now working very, very, very well. And that's one thing that I'm seeing. I will say one thing that I've seen this year. I've had some people discussing big rankings drops. That was kind of a theme for a lot of people who were getting a lot of leads through SERPs. And in
Mhm.
April and May, people who had very wide strategies got pummeled. and very focused, like niche focused sites, like a city, like Denver Roofer or Denver Painter might have done really well, and Colorado Painter or Colorado Roofer got smashed.
Yeah. Another thing I saw too, going back to that, is these businesses. Like for example, chiropractors. Their website is seen as chiropractor, right? But chiropractors also oftentimes will offer things like acupuncture, massage therapy. Whereas in 2023, we could conceivably rank for that. But now, especially, and I think the last vestiges of this kind of got canned. You can't rank for those because those are way too far away from your core service. And in the April update, those last guys who were ranked for something only tangentially related to their main service got that wiped out. I think that that now is at least currently is kind of dead in the water if you're trying to rank for too many different topics on one website or one GBP.
I have a theory about that. And my theory is that Google is distilling your overall authority within the umbrella of brand authority. In other words, previously where you might be given all of your subjects have to fit under your brand authority. And so it's if your authority was really spread out and very, very diverse and your brand authority was weak, they basically shrunk that all the way down. And so some businesses with massive brand authority still did well. I mean, like I would imagine, Jiffy Lube still shows up
Oh,
for breaks or whatever, but
yeah.
probably took a hit. But like other brands that were weaker, I saw, the distribution that they could rank for go down a lot. And I think that
Mhm.
that again is about knowledge graph. I think that that's about like Google wants you to invest into a brand because they don't want you to compete with them just for search terms. They
Right.
like, and I think that that's one of the things, the helpful content penalties has targeted is subject matter dominance versus brand
Mhm.
dominance, in addition to page spam. And so I kind of see that happening more and more to where if you want something that's super, super like that Google is probably going to allow you to have for a long time, I want to pick a lane and like attack
Yeah.
it.
Exactly. Yeah, the metaphor I give to people is, think about the things that McDonald's had experimented with. They had like the McPizza, the McLobster roll, right? Like the McSpaghetti. But people don't go to McDonald's for those things, right?
Yeah.
People go to McDonald's for hamburger. It's the same thing. If you go too far outside your lane, Google's not going to give you the love, right? This can take a lot of work, a lot, and you might not even get the ROI for it to be able
Yeah.
to make for these other terms, which is why sticking with your core topic and becoming the expert in your area in those topics is really the best way to surface in front of your potential customers now.
That probably means that there are some secondary like business services that are highly profitable that used to be like always done by like a roofer. Maybe like siding is really easy to get into right now. Nobody built their whole business on siding. Very, very rarely. There are
Right.
exteriors companies, but they're all focused on roofing. That's where they make the most money. So,
Mhm.
it's quite possible that you could create a siding company and just clean up right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, what's funny is so I've had this long running test site of mine, right? It's for solar panels, and it was ranking really well for solar panel cleaning until April. Because what happened is solar panel cleaning is done by house cleaners now.
Yeah.
So my solar panel, like it was like a lead gen site, but I was experimenting on it, completely tanked for those terms. And it's now being replaced by all these house cleaning companies who do solar panel cleaning.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting. So getting into the weeds a little bit, one thing that I've had to change this year. So one of the biggest weaknesses Agency Assassin has run into with CTR, one of our
Mhm.
biggest fall downs is Google began to seemingly knock out too consistent of traffic patterns. So if you're doing small numbers of keywords and steady traffic over time, then over about the first 4 months of a campaign, we would lose a significant amount of our potency. And then we'd gain it back once the historical traffic boosted the listing. So historical traffic gave another benefit. So I'd have this sag between about months 3 and 7 where my software didn't work
Mhm.
as well. Once the historical kicks in, it would, even out okay. And so I had to change methods and create a custom GPT that takes all of, the customer's like keyword list from their GBP and it makes like a very long tail category, a wider money keyword category and a wider brand keyword category. And that has worked extremely well for improving performance by just kind of keeping Google from detecting patterns as much. Are there any areas of like technical method where you've had to change things because Google has started to become more sensitive in like a similar way or in other ways?
Yeah, so I mean that's a good example to Google caught on to people like you said just to install that keywords. You need to add in that kind of static in there. As far as like technical things, like I said, one thing that we stopped doing is just producing massive amounts of pages targeting every single like neighborhood. So basically, like we would find a city or whatever, we would scrape whatever was in the knowledge graph of that city, whether it be neighborhoods or schools, points of interest, and we would create a page for all of that. Right now, all of a sudden, we saw this actually with a plastic surgeon client of ours, to where her plastic surgeon queries dropped, and all of a sudden, queries for like, hey, what do I do in this city? Or what do I do in this city? Where are places in this city? Those all rose. So we all of a sudden went from being a service provider to being more of like a travel site and like an informational provider. So we had to knock all those pages off, and then all of a sudden it went back up and kind of renormalized. So what we figured out there is again, one of the old strategies that everybody was talking about and probably haven't caught on yet is creating all these pages and putting all these different zip codes and embeds in your page and stuff is actually going to do more hurt than help now, because now you're going into being a completely different topic and bucket rather than being a service provider. So that's one thing that we got to stop completely. We were like, okay, kill these pages. This is not working. We have to trim this down to just our core service and what we actually are, rather than trying to cover fucking everything.
That's interesting. That's interesting. That matches with like kind of the aesthetic that we're talking about. Like focus and
Right.
clarity seems to be winning out. Probably wider. You can go wider if you're going off page with links in a certain way.
Yeah.
But like another thing that I've heard suffering a lot is people were doing links to map embeds. And I've definitely heard that in the last year, about this time, it was working really well to do subject matter links to map embeds. Very, very well. And I have heard since then that is tanking listings. They've built lots and lots of links to map embeds that are all subject matter, Denver roofer, Denver roofing, Denver siding versus, interstate roofing, that you're seeing penalties. Are you seeing that same kind of thing?
Well, we never actually did that. So what we did is, so when we did mass map embeds, whether it's like SEO Neo or Money Robot or whatever, we would actually write these pages as if we wanted them to rank. So we would actually use core tuned content writing about the service. For example, for Greenhab Local SEO, one of our services is free until you rank SEO. So instead of doing all these map embeds about SEO agency in San Diego, we start writing about our services with core tuned content. One of them is like free until you rank SEO. Others were like, I forgot, SEO for some specific industry. But we wrote it with core tuned content instead of writing about that very exact subject, like you said, that very exact keyword, a very exact topic. We actually got some of these like money robot pages to rank, and we still got the love from Google because we weren't just spamming this one specific topic.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. So like kind of so what I would gather from that is Google is limiting signals unless Google sees the signal as providing value itself. So
Yes.
I mean, like by using Quora or whatever to build up like your content to where like you're supporting, so if you're doing metal roofing in Westminster, Colorado, then you're providing actual quality to that term. Because if you're doing the core report, you're doing comparative content. So you're bringing the information that's important, that's
Yeah.
specific to that one term. And so it's going to have a tendency to have some novelty, like it'll be unique content and it'll be unique perspective. And so if you're providing that, then you're still seeing that actually transmit to the map.
Yes. 100%. That is exactly what it is. And with Quora too, it tells you like what are the questions people are asking as one of those tabs. So we make sure to answer those specific questions, and tells you what schema to use too. So we make sure to use that schema too, right? And it's funny you should mention like the different perspectives, because with this cement spot over in Colorado, within 2 weeks after I went in and did some of the on-page stuff, the things that I do, like I said, is I look at Reddit, I scrape Reddit, I see what people on Reddit are saying about specific services and about specific brands, right?
Yeah.
And these things are people that other people are writing about because they're using the same chat GPT bullshit, right? So if you incorporate Reddit, if you scrape Reddit and see not only are what people are saying about the service, but what people are saying about other brands, and then you compare yourself to those brands in your off-page content, that gives you a huge boost, right?
Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess that's kind of, it's interesting because like people might be afraid of doing that, mentioning like maybe you're going to be mentioning certain like competitors or like something like that to where like someone might feel concerned about that. But really, you're filling in the topic, you're providing
Exactly.
context.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. You're writing about your brand, you're providing context, you're adding new and novel information, right? Because I mean, how many people out there are writing content, providing content that is comparing different med spas to each other, like in Southern California or whatever, right?
And that's so, I mean, just to plug you a little bit, this is one of the services that you're building for SEO Warehouse, correct?
Yeah. So I'm still in the process of doing this. We got the Reddit part down, but we're also doing is we're going to be scraping other social media like Instagram, YouTube, stuff like that, see what people are actually talking about, and then creating landing pages, press releases, other off-page content, which includes all this new and novel information. And this is going to be ready. Fingers crossed, it's going to be ready to launch on the September 23rd.
Okay, awesome. Oh wow, so right around the corner. Awesome. Well, then
Yeah.
people seeing this, they can reach out. How would people email you if they wanted to communicate, or where would they find out more information about that?
Yeah. So I'm super bad at email, but if you go to ghls.io and you fill out the form in there, it goes to Shannon, who is our very nice customer service rep.
Yeah. I have the
Yeah.
same problem. I have the same problem. If I tell everybody to contact me, then many people end up disappointed. Okay, great. Great. So then what would you say? I mean, like in terms of tools right now that people like, I mean, if you were like tools that you think someone out there who's a do-it-yourselfer, what do you recommend people for where they should put their attention if they don't
Okay.
want to, go to
If
you?
Yeah, if you don't want to get overwhelmed, I've had people actually asking this question. Like, I don't have unlimited time. What are like the top two or three tools that you would recommend I use for SEO? So aside from getting a good rank tracker, obviously Agency Assassin. Like I can't say I can't say enough about how it works. Like to be honest, like I was a skeptic before I met you and really learned about how the tool worked, and then seeing how it works, seeing how not just how it helps increase rankings, but we've actually seen ourselves be insulated from updates and stuff
Yeah.
because we're getting all these signals. So use Agency Assassin for CTR for sure. If you can only afford one tool, use that one. The other thing that I recommend everybody use too, like I mentioned before, is SEO Neo, which for local SEO works really well to get your backlinks, to get your embeds, and to get those mass instances of your RDF triples and your NAP out there as well. Use that. Make sure you get crawled. If you use that with Agency Assassin, you're going to be ranking pretty well for
Yeah.
most sectors.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm seeing these days, which is if you have a strong knowledge graph strategy, meaning your on page, your schema, your content is well built out,
Mm.
you do want the off page mentions is the thing.
Yep.
SEO Neo is going to provide a lot of that on its own. There are potentially other methods. I'll be releasing some tests for schema through press releases and some
Mhm.
other methods as well. But it does seem like that's kind of the magic recipe. If you get a website to rank your map, then you're affecting knowledge graph. If you can do that and you use Agency Assassin, you're going to be happy. But
Okay.
the people who really struggle are the people who have no authority,
Mhm.
no way of impacting knowledge graph. I mean, they're not working on websites and pages or links, and they're trying to rank on maps from the listing alone. And CTR is challenging. I just don't.
That's not gonna
It's
happen
not.
anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
yeah,
can't do it anymore. That's dead. All these guys who are GDP specialists,
yeah.
like, they don't have a place in this anymore.
It is pretty tough unless you choose low competition. I know a
Right.
guy that's doing like car washes. Software works very, very well on car
Oh,
washes, very little knowledge because car washes are not great, huge investors into their websites. They're not doing,
right.
CTR. But yeah, but if it's not, if it's either low competition, low population, or you're going to need to like have these other signals as well. Yeah. Awesome. All right, Kyle, thank you so much. I want to mention also that you have your YouTube channel, which is Greenhab Local SEO. And so you can search for that. Kyle has a ton of videos. He is showing you technical strategy. Like, I don't know. I mean, like there's a lot of people out there who talk about things. He's very, very generous in showing how things work. So if you're looking for like technical know-how, I definitely recommend his channel. Thank you so much, Kyle.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun.
Awesome. Thank you.